Next, let's look at some of the basic tools for adding elements to the document. This T will add text or type. With that tool selected, if you click, it will create point text, versus if you click and drag, it will create a box, a text area. To get out of that text area, you're going to click the black arrow or hold down Control and click out of the box. With text selected, up here at the top, you'll see character, where you can adjust and change the font. It's nice that it changes it live. You can preview it. Another place to access characters is over here on the right. You'll see character and fonts. With text selected, you can change the font size manually. Or if it's point type, you can click on the point type and hold down Shift. And holding down one of the corners, you can resize the type. It's important to scale type proportionately by holding down Shift. With point type and text having multiple lines, you can also change the lettering height, which is the space between lines. Also with fonts, you can use a filter, so you can filter by classification of either sans serifs, serifs, and more. If you're looking for a specific typeface. You can select multiple objects with the black arrow and clicking and dragging a selection box for either one element or multiple elements. And to delete them, you can tap the delete key or backspace. If you need to undo, you can use Control Z or Command Z, or up in the menu is Edit, Undo, but you're really going to want to use and remember Control Z. For drawing basic shapes, this rectangle, you can see the shortcut is M, and you can draw a rectangle with that tool selected by clicking and dragging. To draw a square, you'll hold down Shift to click and drag the shape. To resize any of the shapes with it selected, you'll see up here in the top, you can change the width or type in a value. And if it's proportionate, it will change both values. If it's unlocked, it's going to change only one of the dimensions. If you click and hold down on the rectangle, you can see some other options such as an ellipse. And again, if you hold down Shift while clicking and dragging, you can draw a circle. You can also draw polygons and stars. With a polygon, you can adjust the number of sides by clicking and holding this diamond and releasing. Now that I have some shapes to work with, I can adjust specific anchor points. If I zoom in by tapping Z, you'll see that each of these points is blue and also the center of the shape. I can use this white arrow or the direct selection. The shortcut is A, and I can click on individual points or select multiple points and click and move those to create different shapes. You can also select one and move it or delete it. Or I can remove the point and keep this path still joined. So the A or direct selection, you can move independent points. You can also, with it selected, use your arrow keys to adjust in small amounts, or Shift and arrow keys. You can move an entire shape with the direct selection by clicking and dragging to move it around, or holding down Shift and your arrow keys, or just the arrow keys will move it slightly. You'll notice that all of my shapes have a black fill. The default is actually, if I tap D for default, has a white fill with a black stroke. To edit the fill, you can go up to the top right here, you'll see swatches. And in this panel, we have some default swatches. You'll notice I still have a stroke that's black. To change the stroke, I'll click on the stroke to bring it to the front, and now when I select a color, it will change the stroke. If I want to increase or decrease the size of that stroke, I can click on the stroke tool, and here I can adjust the weight of the stroke, or up here in the top left, I can change the stroke and fill. If I want to remove the stroke, I can set it to 0, or with it on top, I can click this square with a red diagonal through it to remove it. To remove the fill, same thing. Make sure it's on front and remove it. You can also swap the stroke and fill with these little arrows. If you click on those, it will swap, or that shortcut is Shift X. If stroke is selected, you can also bring the fill or stroke to the top by tapping just the X key. And now with stroke on top, I can add a stroke or remove it with the / key, which is the shortcut for none. With the fill or stroke selected, I can add a gradient by clicking on this middle square, which shows a gradient. And over here, you'll see a gradient icon, and that's where we can edit the gradient. If you're editing a gradient, you might want to pull out that panel, click on the color, and use the eyedropper to change part of the gradient, or click on the other color and change that one. Whenever we have a corner, such as on this rectangle, you'll see that when I have a rectangle or an object selected with a corner, that there is a little dot inside of the shape on the corner. I can click on that dot and pull it to round all corners, or if I undo, Control Z. If I want to round only one corner or a selection of corners, I can use the white arrow to select just one anchor point and round only one corner. Or I can select multiple corners, holding down Shift with the white arrow selected, and round multiple corners. There's also a line tool, which is the / for shortcut, and you can click and drag and release to draw a line. You'll see that it currently has no stroke, so we need to go to stroke, or tap D for default to give it a stroke. And now we can change the weight. There are also more options to stroke if you go to this flyout menu in the stroke panel and show options. And here are other attributes we can change. We can make it a dashed line. We can change and make arrowheads. We can also change the profile. The pen tool, which is P for shortcut, is another helpful tool to draw custom shapes. So you can click on the board and hover to another location, click to add a point, and keep doing that. Or you can click and holding down, create a curve. And to remove that curvature, if you wanted to draw a straight line next, you would just click on the anchor point, and now you have a straight line. If you want to constrain that to a straight line, you can hold down Shift to keep it at a specific angle. Or freestyle. And then to get out of the pen tool mode, you can tap the Escape key. And here you'll see I have a black stroke and a white fill, or I can swap those. To join two paths, I can select both of these endpoints holding down Shift and do Control J to join them, or go to Object, Path, Join. And now we have an enclosed shape. Or with the pen tool, you can create an enclosed shape by clicking on the first point that you created. When we have an enclosed shape, or even just a line, with that selected, you can use the eraser or Shift E and erase parts of the shape. You can do that with any enclosed shape, or you could do it with a line. Another way to draw is with the brush tool, or B for shortcut. And you can freely draw, or you can hold down Shift to draw a straight line. You'll see when I select one of the lines that has been drawn with a brush, it defaults to a 5-point round. You can change that to basic to control it a little bit better, or you can select other brushes. There's a whole catalog of brushes here in this library, which is in the bottom left of that panel, or over here on the right is the brush panel with this library in the lower right. Going back to swatches with an element selected, making sure I can edit the fill or stroke, making sure that's on top. You'll also see there are other swatches like gradients here, or some patterns or textures. And in the bottom left of the swatches panel, there's a library that you can open many other swatch panels. There are also some other lines and textures and patterns. If you'd like to sample a color or a stroke or a style from another element, you can select an object and use the eyedropper tool, or I for shortcut, and select a different styled object. You'll see that it doesn't always use the same as a brush. It's very important to save often by either going to File, Save, or Control S. For some reason, after I updated to 2025, it's been crashing more frequently. So be sure to save often, Control S or Command S.